Okay, so this is really an overview, a refresher that Siobhan had asked us to do with the sales team, just to give it.
He's gone. You're gone,
Oh,
Peter.
we've lost you, Peter.
You're going to start getting calls. You might start getting, your customers reaching out to you, asking you questions, and just to give you a refresh as to exactly what the portal is, how it functions. Most of you are doing testing, you know what it is, but just for belt and braces, we thought it'd be a good idea for Helen to do a quick walkthrough. So I'm going to go off camera because I can see I'm getting quite stuttery here, and I'll hand over to Helen.
Sure. So you should all have your usernames and passwords. I think most of you will have logged on. A lot of you have been heavily engaged in testing. So we're now where we've gone live. We were previously using MailTrap, which was trapping the mail. Anything generated now is actually firing out to email addresses. So if you've got any issues with resetting passwords, I can give you a hand at the end, but I'm kind of making the assumption that you're all in. You'll notice that I've signed in here as Kira, purely because my access is slightly different, so don't want to cause much confusion. So I've signed in as her just to give you kind of the run through. So I'll start with a bit of the navigation, which is kind of what we've covered off in the customer user guide. So essentially, you've got this menu down this left-hand side, and that stays consistent throughout the pages that you're on. You can collapse it for a bit more space using this button here. You've got your search up here, so you can throw in there, if we went tenant, for example, you can throw in there most things, so company names, account numbers, users' email address. If you've got a user who rings you and says, I've had a welcome email, I'm stuck, I can't access it, or whatever they're doing, you can just pop in their email address there and it would return user. You can see on this right hand side it gives you the type. So I typed in tenant and I get the company, the site, the account and the GPRN. If I were to type in my name, for example, it would return me as a user, and you can see user there. So vastly speaking, you can use query numbers. Most things are searchable, and they will return the type there. So sort of if in doubt of where to navigate, I'd start with the search. Then you've got all of the different items down here. So you can go to companies, for example, directly. So if you're wanting to navigate, you can come through here. You can also go through sites. If you know a specific site that you're wanting to navigate to, you can absolutely use that menu on the left hand side there. In reality, what a lot of people tend to do is navigate straight to the company, and this recently accessed can be really handy for that. So this will give you the last 10 or so pages that you've been on. So it will give you, again, sites, companies, it would give you users. So from here, for example, if I choose Siobhan, that will take us directly through into the entry. So that takes us straight through into Siobhan's account there. So essentially coming here and going to sites is exactly the same as selecting sites in this left-hand menu. It's just another way of doing it. So really just based on preference. Now let's go to tenant. Before we go through the actual specific company, I'll just cover off a couple of the navigations across here. So you've got the messages icon here, and that is used for query responses back and forth. So if you are in the customer care team, for example, and queries are coming through, you would see little notification popping up there. I have just noticed that you've got the notifications one on, and at the moment you guys aren't using notifications, so we can switch that bell off. The customers don't have that on because I know that from having done the user guide for those, so we can get rid of that one. But if you guys were to move to using notifications, so we've got, it could be invoices due, overdue, that kind of stuff, that's where you would see that, but that functionality is not on at the moment. So it's generally messages and the recently accessed here. Over here, this is where you're able to either go to your details, so you can see then your email address, who's set up, where you've been clicking, all of that kind of information. You can also log out there, and if, like I've done here, I'm signed in as someone else, you can go to the logout and it will push you back into being signed in as you. So you may well use that quite often if you're on the phone to customers. So if you've got a customer that's called you with an issue, you can sign in as them. And the way you do that is via the action and log in as user. It won't appear here because I am signed in as Kira, but you would have that entry there. In the action button, there's a number of things that you can do. So you can change your password. Because Kira is an admin user, she can do add a broker, she can add document repository uploads, she can add company access. Resend welcome email is one you may use probably from time to time with customers. So if they rang you and said, I know I had an email, I can't find it, you can just re-trigger their welcome email to them, and a user edit. So if a user rings up and says their telephone number's changed or that one of the entries is needs updating, you can do that there. We go into a company itself. So that's kind of the navigation. You've got the main left-hand menu. You've got these quick links here, and then the action button. This action button is dynamic, so it will change depending on what page you're on. So here you'll see that Dashboard Manager has come up. So this is what we call the company dashboard, and this is set as a default. So we always have it as a starting point of what a customer would get, but it can be changed. And the way to change that is via Dashboard Manager. The things you can change are the layout. So at the moment it's in columns, 3 columns. You can change it to have 2 columns or one really large widget, which is these visuals here, and all of these. So you would just select whatever you want and hit update. Users can turn off widgets. So these visuals that we see are called widgets. They can turn them off from view. So if there's any they're not interested in seeing, I don't know, you've got a user that doesn't want to see the company balance, or they don't want to see the queries, or whatever it could be, they can change those. Well, by change as in they can deselect them and hit update and they'll no longer appear. And that's on all of the dashboards. So you'll see that throughout. But essentially here, you can drag and drop these around. So you can move them over here if that's preferred. Move this one over here. You just need to drag it from the top bar and just get that blue space to be able to move it. This gives the overview of the account essentially. So you've then got the tabs across the top here. So you've got your accounts tab. Once you select in here, it will give you, the account balance. It will tell you the site that's related, the account history. So all of the invoices and credit notes, etc. You've got your dates that you can push back further if you need to go back. You can download it. So essentially downloads a list of those invoices and credit notes. You've got your actual invoice download tab. So you literally just click on there and you get to download the invoices and view those. Similarly, that can be downloaded. So that would give you a list of all of these invoices that are here. The feed is populated when queries start to be exchanged. So any query which is at an account level, you would see that in here in this feed. We go back here and cover off the other tabs that you see. So that's navigating through into the account. From the site, you can see the meter refs that are populated. So if we select this one, for example, so you'd be able to see here, you've got your cumulative consumption. So this is the consumption cumulative from the 1st of April. This one is up to the end of May. And then you've got the aggregated as well. So all of the daily amounts. Again, with widgets, you can move them around as you prefer. They do have this little question mark on them. So these are populate, that text can be changed. So we can populate the text there. Might be useful in explaining them. You can collapse them and reopen them. And if you use the crossbar, that would actually, you just get a little prompter of, are you sure? And that would actually remove that widget. You can always re-add it again via that dashboard manager, but it would get rid of it in that instance. And here is where you're able to see the readings. So you can see we've got from 1st of April to the 30th of April, and then we've got the 1st of May to the 31st of May. So that correlates, these time periods that you see here correlates with your overview. So you can see the 1st of April to the 30th of April having that 108,084 that you see in here. Go back, I'll just go into the, so then you've got reports. So at the moment this is blank, so none have been uploaded, but here is where reports would be surfaced. So you've got, I'm trying to think what the types are. I know that there's a weekly report. You guys are probably far more au fait with the types, but that's essentially where they would sit in here. They would have the report type, and just like the other tabs, downloadable, and the same date from and to there. Users would show you the users that are belong to this company, and then you've got your feed, which again would show you any company-based queries. So you see them at each kind of context. So as I said before, in the account, you'd see account queries. This would be more kind of general queries that are raised at company level, you would see here. And then you've got your third parties with access, which vastly for you guys is blank. I believe it's only Digrin Energy that has some LOAs set up. And you can navigate to brokers here. So if you did see an entry in there, if we go to Digrin, you'll be able to see the companies that they have access to. So these are the companies that they have access to. These are the start dates and the end dates. You'll see some of them may well be in the past. We've got one there that's actually already expired. But once they have users, and I know that that is actually going to be pushed further along the kind of the rollout plan, but they would start to be able to access the company's data based on these dates once there are users set up. Until then, the company would just be able to see, so if we went to Aggregear, for example, you would be able to see an entry on that users with access tab. Third parties with access tab. So saying that Digrin would have access there. So they do have that visibility as well. A key area will be for users around data analysis. So this is where users are able to come and graph and export their consumption data. So if we go with this one, for example, so you have to select the utility that it is, so electricity.
Helen, just one quick thing on the Digrin, just to clarify that they will have access only after Digrin themselves are registered on the portal.
Yeah, Digrin have no users at the moment,
Exactly. So that while they're set up as a broker with those companies, until they themselves are actually registered, they won't have access.
There we go. So when you come in here, you would first, it will default to electricity. You can choose gas. So if you know you've got a gas meter that you're wanting to graph, just make sure you change that there, because if you don't, it won't return the search result because you've got electricity set. So you want to change that first. You can choose line graph or bar chart, and then here you've got the intervals. So I've graphed this one at quarter hourly, and you can actually see that after the reference. So here you can see it's quarter hourly data. Now, obvious thing, you can't graph quarter hourly if it doesn't have that granularity. So if you're doing it for one that is monthly, for example, you're not going to be able to have that level of data. So just be mindful when you're entering the reference there, you can actually map that with what data is available. You can use this kind of last year, last month, last week, if you prefer, or if it's better for you, or depending on the circumstance, you can use the date from and the date to, and yeah, and then essentially you can just put in your meters. You can choose multiple, and it would just graph those in different colors, and underneath the graph you are able to see the total kilowatt hours, and you can see the carbon equivalent, and that is the conversion for that is explained up here in this banner, where you can extend it and view more or less and actually link to those sources. So I've graphed those two. You can use this grey bar here to pan right into the data, and once you get to a level of a certain number of data points, it actually allows you to see those specifically, so you can actually go over those and see those 15-minute intervals there, and obviously pull it back out again as you wish. Highlight it, just hovering over that line, obviously you see the actual data value versus the average, which is also plotted. You can at this point export it. So this data analytics is very much for kind of in the moment graphing, drilling in, drilling out, pinpointing, kind of quite exploratory, you could say. If someone knows what they want and they want large amounts of data, while they can do that to an extent here, if for example they're wanting to do maybe monthly, and they could choose the last, if I do just let that graph through. So this one, obviously the data is only from the 1st of April. So as time goes on, you're going to get more of a history that you're displaying to your customers. But they can do that. But if they're wanting to get larger amounts of data, it's data export that they're wanting. It has exactly the same search here. So it's the same criteria other than the graph bar or line, because it's no longer graphing. And here you would choose, for example, let's go with one we know has a number of sites. So here, so you would choose your company, and then you may well want all of them, in which case you can do shift control and take everything across. So highlight them all, take them all across. Or if actually it's only a few of the meters, you can take those back. You can then select which ones you want and shove those across. So essentially you're just assigning what ones do I want data for, what period do I want the data for, and then exporting it, and that will actually export the larger amounts of data. So this is where we tend to see more activity in data export from kind of brokers, or just the larger end of the market that just have more sites that they want to export data for. You can still do it down to that half hourly, quarter hourly. It's just you don't have the graphing, so you need to know what you want to export. So that's the kind of energy consumption side of things. What else will be important? So you may have noticed, for the eagle eyes amongst you, you've got meter ref, or you've got groups. So there's some functionality here that allows you to set up a group. So if we just go through here, so there's already one for DHL, and essentially you can set up a group via action add group. You can give it a name, you need to give it a reference number, a description. You can choose who can see it, and then you add sites into it in exactly the same way as we just did in that data export. And once that group's created, you then would have this dashboard, which very similarly to kind of company dashboard, but gives this sort of overview of the accounts that are in it, the sites, any reports and any users. But what this means is once this is created within data analysis and within data export, if you change that to groups, you are able to add whichever group it is you want and do the graphing based on the group. The group might be a subset of a large customer, or it may well bring multiple companies together. I know the Vodafone one was bringing together a number of entities. So yeah, that's the grouping functionality. What else do we have? So you've got users.
Grouping, Helen.
Yeah.
On the grouping, is that something that I know I was kind of through the testing phase, I was like adding groups or whatever. Is that going to
Yeah.
be on the account managers to set up individual groups? Just for curiosity's sake.
So maybe I'll come in on that. So as part of the rollout, so what we're doing is we're rolling out increasing complexity as we go. So when it gets to setting up the groups, there's a spreadsheet on Teams which has all the various groups outlined and the Sage IDs associated with those groups. So what we'll be doing is we'll be creating those groups in advance of rolling out to those customers, so that the site group will be set up and will be available to you guys. So as the project will do that.
All right, magic. Thanks, Peter.
You've got users. So you could, again, this is kind of where you generally come if you're concerned about trying to find a user, when were they set up, that kind of thing. So this allows you the search. So if you know, I don't know, that they're called Sam, you can come here and you can pinpoint that user. These ones aren't going to be, it's really the all users that you guys would use. I know that Sarah, who's going to do some setting up of the users, may well use the user imports, but otherwise for you guys, it's vastly the all users. In reports, there are a small number of predetermined reports. So there's an account report, there's a queries report that users can find in this entry here. Because Kira is obviously an internal user, she gets a few more. So it's only the accounts report, groups report, and query report that are seen by customers. So they all sit there. And then all reports is an area where the user is able to see all of the reports that are available to them. So if you cast your mind back to on the company page, you'll notice there was a reports tab there, but you can also have reports that are on the group dashboard. But here, this would allow you to see basically everything. So if you've got 5 companies you have access to, this gives you the visibility of all of those reports that exist across the 5 companies and the number of groups that you may well have. So by its very name, it gives you the access to all reports. Document repository, this is an area where we've uploaded the Barclays Bank details, direct debit mandate, fuel mix, etc. So this is available for customers to come in and they can download these documents. Groups we've covered off. You've got a few admin functions you're able to do here, but if you're able to do them, you'll sort of be in the know of how to do them. And similarly with the query management, so that's where it's a no-code form builder essentially. So you're able to script queries that you want your users to be able to raise. I didn't actually click into raise a query, so if we just do that, so raise a query. So this is where these are the queries that have been set up for users to be able to raise. And you'll notice here, so you've got general. These ones are all at a higher level. These ones are invoicing, so submit a PO number, for example. So they would come here. Now, this list, because I'm signed in as Kira, she can raise this on like any company. If a user only has access to their single one company, this would already be defaulted to whatever that company is. So it's all access restricted based. So it's only because you're obviously a FloGas user here that they can select all of them. But essentially here is where you can script questions. So in this instance, it's please enter your PO number. If it's got the star after it, it means that it's mandatory. So I've just tried to submit that, but I didn't enter anything. So it's saying you can't do that. You need to enter your PO number. And then essentially, the query gets submitted. That would come through into the customer care inbox and then would be worked through from there. Query management allows you to change any of those queries that are set up. So if you want to ask an additional question or something like that, that's where we can do that. I think that covers vastly everything. Has anyone got any questions around what they're anything they're struggling on or anything they've seen that doesn't make sense?
It's all clear from my side, anyway. Helen, thank you.
Perfect. Do reach out as you start to use it if there's things that you're unclear on. Just let us know.
I was just going to ask, do the guys have any customers that are specific to them that they'd like to see that they haven't seen yet, that there might be some data there we can have a quick look at? Sounds like they know the customers inside out.
Perfect. We'll have a play. And if everyone could maybe, I don't know, just set aside 10 minutes or so, maybe after lunch, just have a little look at like your key customer. It will make more sense as you look at it with a customer that you know the data on. So yeah, just if everyone takes a moment to take a look and just let us know anything that's unclear, then we can clear that up before we have customers perhaps needing your support.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for that, Helen. That's fantastic. It's been really informative as always.
Pleasure.
Okay. Well, look, if there's no other questions, we'll call it there. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Helen.
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank you, Helen.
Bye.
Cheers,
I'll
cheers.
put the
Bye.
recording up on Teams so that everyone has a chance to go back over it.